You're listening to 3 Days Through the Wood, a novel by Bear Mawasagi, as read by the author. Chapter 6. The Harvestman. With the sun finally fallen somewhere beyond the horizon, and the shadows of the forest stretched so far that they turned to night sky, the stars came out to bear witness. They were beautiful, unhindered by the clouds, and between them the eye of the moon was watching Pill and Chirp from far above the forest, bathing them in silver light and illuminating the long journey ahead. With the forest quiet, there were no more travelers to be found. They seemed to be alone in the woods now, and so Chirp finally saw fit to quiet down somewhat. The day had been long, and they were both starting to feel the ache in their bones from having walked the whole while. Pill thought Chirp resembled something from a horror show now, slowly trudging forward with his eyes half closed, drool forming along the corner of his mouth as he slumped foot after foot forward like the walking dead. They would need to stop soon. Chirp was about ready to collapse, and Pill was near as exhausted. The forest floor was thick with leaves, and they had been slowly working their way into Pill's trousers. He didn't even notice them until they were scratching at his ankles, causing a terrible itch and making him feel half a straw man, of the sort one might set in the fields to scare errant children and the occasional crow. All he needed to complete the look, he thought, was a burlap sack for a face and a wide-brimmed hat. He kept his eyes lifted to the distant wood even as they struggled to close on him. Pill was spent, dead on his feet. Thin, low branches like fingers raked gently through his hair, grasping tenderly over his face as he trudged the tight forest trail. He barely noticed any of it. Chirp was a mess of leaves and twigs and various burrs he had collected roaming through the wood, and his knees were a muddy disaster. It looked like he had been walking on all fours at some point, because his hands were thick with dirt as well. If anyone were to see the two of them in this state, one might think that they had been lost for days, weeks even. At the very least, they would certainly deem Pill a terrible guardian. "All right," said Pill. "We should probably try and rest for the night." "Why here?" Chirp asked. His voice sounded very distant. "Here's as good as anywhere." "We're not at town yet," Chirp argued through a yawn. Pill grabbed him by the shoulder. "I know, but I don't think we'll be making it there tonight," he said softly. "Come on, we'll find a spot to settle down and get some rest. We can keep walking tomorrow." "I'm hungry," said Chirp. "I know," said Pill. "And cold." "I'm sorry," said Pill. "I really hoped we'd make it further than we did." "Just a little longer?" Chirp asked, stubbornly pulling forward. "We're almost there. We have to be." "No," said Pill. He fought to grind Chirp to a halt, then had to fight even harder to keep him steady on his feet. The boy was ready to collapse. "Let's get some sleep, okay? The trail will still be here in the morning." "What about my mom?" Pill inhaled softly. "I'm sure we'll find her tomorrow," he lied. They didn't venture far from the path, nor did they find a bush or anything of the sort to sleep in. Chirp fell to the forest floor with a dull thud and sat, his eyes growing heavier until he was breathing softly. His head slumped down over a tree before softly falling into Pill's lap. While Pill could feel the exhaustion of the day trying to take him, he was far from ready to sleep. The soft silence of the woods kept dreams at bay, a-buzzing his mind with inquiries of the unknown. The unknown, Pill thought, was always ripe with danger of the sort one couldn't expect, and his eyes watched the branching horizon for signs of threats and things to come, watching for danger, watching for the sickly silhouette of the Straw Hat Girl. Other things nibbled at him as well, however. He swat aside 2 bloodsuckers and other heavier flies that came to buzz around the two of them, particularly as they tried to land on the sleeping and defenseless Chirp. Their drone was like the incessant buzz of Grizzly's warning in his ear, telling him winter was coming, and the cold would bring with it the slow end of all things. Pill knew that they needed to find town soon, both for Chirp's sake and his own. While the boy seemed warm enough to sleep, at least for tonight, Pill thought he could already feel the frost starting to gnaw at the tips of his fingers, spreading in cold rivers through his veins and growing crystals of ice in his heart. He shivered and pulled his fleece tight. He wasn't tired, he told himself, but if he could just rest his eyes. He blinked once and thought briefly that the sky had played a trick on him. The stars were all changing places. He blinked again and the moon moved to the center sky, looking back at him. When he blinked a third time, the moon blinked right back. Pill sat with a start. Drool was slugging its way down his chin. How long had he slept? Chirp was breathing softly, curled tight into a ball at his lap. Something was moving through the wood. Pill sat quietly, listening and trying to gauge what it might be. It wasn't the sound of something crashing through the trees like Chirp sounded while on the chase, nor was it moving in dread silence like a predator at work. It was too heavy to be a man, Pill knew, and too steady to be footsteps, with rhythmic clunk, 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 shrouded by the sound of leaves. No, it was a trot. Clop, 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 clop. A horse. A light appeared through the distant wood. Not the sun or the moon, but something else low to the earth and bright, casting shadows between the trunks as it trot slowly past. Pill caught a glimpse of someone tall moving above the brush, wearing a wide-brimmed hat. He dropped low to the ground. "What?" Chirp asked, shifting unsteadily. "I'm not tired yet." "Shh," Pill urged, curling tight over the boy. "Stay quiet." "What's wrong?" asked Chirp. His ears twitched. "Do you hear that?" "I said stay quiet." "It sounds like it's getting closer." "Shh, Chirp, please." The trotting came to a steady halt as the sound reached its apex. He heard a snort, a stamp, and the sound of creaking iron close by. "Whoa there, easy now," said a weary-sounding voice. Chirp was awake, his eyes were wide. "Pill, who is that?" "I don't know," Pill whispered. "Maybe they can help us." "Someone out there?" the weary voice called. They sounded like an old man. "It's a late hour to be roaming the wood alone." He didn't sound like the Straw Hat Girl, at least. Knowing they were found and deciding to take a chance, Pill lifted his head. The old man wasn't far away from them, looking to be on another path just over the tree line. He had a kind and weary face, with age lines carved like ruts along his cheeks and eyes, making him look 100 if he were a day. His smile was easy, however, unafraid of the mysteries and frights of the midnight forest, and confident with the wisdom of ages. He held a small lantern up high, and although they were beyond its light, the old man seemed to be looking right at them. "We're over here," Pill said, gripping Chirp's hand in his. They stood together. "We're lost." "Can you help us, mister?" The old man's face softened further. "Of course," he said. "Come on over into the light now. Let me get a look at you." Pill pushed with Chirp through the small thick of trees separating the two roads, emerging onto another dirt path that ran wide through the forest. The old man was sat atop a wagon stacked high with hay, drawn by a horse shining pale silver in the moonlight. The butt end of some long hand tool was visible in his lap. "Looks like you're carrying half the forest there with you," the old man said, chuckling softly. "Seems you've been at it all day. Must have been tiring. Folk who go roaming like that tend to find themselves lost pretty easy, you know." "Yes, sir," said Pill. He thought the old man looked familiar, but couldn't quite place him. There was a warmth to his face, like a fading dream half-remembered, but it wasn't so vivid as the images conjured up by the arcane sorceries of flower and butterflies. He could have been a grandfather or a very distant uncle. His eyes were unfocused, and his gaze stayed on something in the darkness far beyond them. "We've been walking all day," Chirp said. The old man smiled in sympathy. "Children running about through the woods ain't an altogether uncommon sight. Seen your type before." He wore a simple brown shirt and trousers, held in place with suspenders. He was a farmer, Pill knew, a harvester. The wide-brimmed hat guarded his face from the daylight and kept him shrouded in the night. Wearing it now was probably just a force of habit. Still, the old man's eyes were shining bright, and it was with another easy smile that he made his offer. "I'm happy to help you two on your way if need be, provided you know where you're going." Chirp looked at Pill, his head cocked to the side like a small and curious animal. "We're trying to reach town," Pill said. "And which town would that be?" asked the Harvestman. Pill spoke silence, unable to conjure a name. "I don't know," he admitted. "Any town, really. Anywhere with people where we can find somewhere to sleep. We just want to get out of the woods." "We're lost," said Chirp. The Harvestman nodded. "Heard that story before," he said. He waved for them to climb aboard the wagon. "This place can be a mite confusing for the lost and weary. Never been a bother for me helping a few wayward souls on their path. Come on up and get comfortable. We'll be hitting town soon enough, I'm sure." Chirp watched Pill, watching for guidance. While taking a ride from a stranger went against all of his better instincts and seemed the very worst thing he could encourage a child to do, Pill didn't see any better option. Was riding with this man really worse than spending another night lost in the woods? They might keep walking circles come the morning, and then who knows when they would end up somewhere that was anywhere. And the old man looked friendly enough. Pill nodded to Chirp reassuringly, smiling against himself, and helped Chirp onto the back of the wagon before climbing aboard. "Now you just be sitting yourselves down anywhere you can back there. It might be a bit scratchy, but it's better than rocks and leaves for a pillow, that's for sure," said the Harvestman with another soft chuckle. "Thank you, sir," said Pill. Hay was stacked high in heavy cubes in the back of the wagon, and Chirp quickly carved himself a nest at their center. Pill helped himself to a small bundle and sat atop it closer to the front where he could see the old man better. Only then did he notice that the long tool in his lap was bladed and sharp. "Last of the season," said the Harvestman, patting the wagon. "Cold is coming soon. Can you feel it? Probably not too long before the river freezes over and everyone's buried in snow. Good thing you got yourself that nice coat, eh?" Pill felt at the checkered fleece. The outside was tough against the wind, but its inside was warm and soft. Not for the first time, he noted how large it sat on him, and wondered from where or who he might have got it from. "And how about you?" asked the Harvestman more loudly. "Not too cold back there, are you?" "Feeling good," said Chirp drowsily. He was burrowed so deep in the hay that only his head was visible. Pill and the Harvestman laughed together. Well, the old man did seem familiar, Pill thought. He had yet to use either of their names. He took a chance. "I didn't catch your name," he said, extending a hand. The Harvestman didn't take it, keeping his eyes unfocused toward the road. He looked deep in thought. Not many folks stop to ask me that," he said with a surprised grin. "I'm just a simple harvester making his last roundup of the season." He pulled his hat down. "Talk is good for passing time, but I was always better at the asking questions side of things rather than the answering. If you got something you want to share, I'm listening." All right," said Pill. He tried to think of something, anything that he could share with the old man, but nothing came to mind. "Actually, do you mind if I ask something else first?" "Not at all," said the Harvestman. "Where exactly are we?" Pill asked. "I'm really lost." "Aren't most?" The Harvestman laughed. "Well, I can't give you a name if that's what you're hoping for. The path here doesn't have one, which I guess means it can be called whatever you like. Most folk give it names of their own, so even if they're transitory, I suppose it would be more proper to say it has many names. As for where you are in general, well, then I'd have to say somewhere in the wood now, wouldn't I? I know that's not very helpful, but there's not much I can do to narrow down where you are right this moment. I suppose when one tree looks just like another, that where you are exactly becomes more of a subjective kind of thing. For example, that sycamore we just passed has been here a good couple 100 years, and the one just over there is a few 100 years older. But unless you already knew that, saying, 'the old tree' wouldn't mean a thing to you, would it?" The Harvestman reached back past Pill and took a long straw of hay from the stack, setting it in his teeth. He held a second to Pill. "Thanks," said Pill, starting to chew. "Why not?" "Now, if you'd like to know where I'm going, then that's really up to the season," the Harvestman continued. "I stop off where everything needs to be only as long as I needs to be there. After that, I suppose I'll rest a spell." "When you're a farmer, winter is sort of like summer vacation," Pill said. "I guess that's true," said the Harvestman. "Not that there isn't plenty that needs doing when the cold comes calling. Summer might be the time of life and living, but there's still things to be done in the long dark. My rest is only so much that I'm ready for the work to come. Where did you hear that little saying, anyway?" Pill stifled a yawn. "It was something my dad told me." "Sounds like a wise man," said the Harvestman. "And a farmer himself, if I'm not mistaken." Pill nodded, still realizing what he had said. His dad was a farmer, he knew. The truth rang clear in his mind, echoing in a voice that wasn't quite remembered, but wasn't quite forgotten yet either. A strong voice with strong arms, sights and sounds like ghosts fading back into the night, settling into the recesses of his mind again like mist settling into the cool earth. The memory was brief but fleeting, and left him with a small piece of truth. "My dad was a farmer," he confirmed. "I remember he said that the only time he really got to spend with family was during the winter. He was always tired the rest of the year." Winter is a time for family, said the Harvestman, nodding. A good time to take stock of what we have and what we're working toward, to appreciate all that we are. I remember one time our roof started to leak, Pill continued. My dad, he sent me on this hunt to find tools for him, something about snipe-headed screws and a double-headed hammer. He smiled at the thought. So I was running around the house everywhere, just desperately looking for these things he knew I wasn't going to find. I asked the whole family. Their faces blurred together in his mind, but he could remember the shapes of furtive smiles, the sounds of laughter as he went scrambling through the halls of memory. They were all in on it. See, Dad was only sending me after that stuff to keep me out of the way while he worked. I used to follow him around everywhere back then, trying to help however I could, but usually I just got in the way. You know how kids are. Anyway, by the time I finally got back with the best hammer and nails I could find, mind, he had already patched up the leak. Sounds like he was a clever man, said the Harvestman. He was, said Pill. The heavy sadness was starting to grow again in his chest. A memory he would rather have left buried was trying to rear its head, and Pill looked behind him suddenly at the black forest, waiting for a hint of the things lurking in the dark. There was something else rising inside of him as well. Hot air burned in his lungs, clouded his vision by steaming through his eyes as he tried to keep it contained. A rage was building, a furious storm, something he didn't want to remember. He tried to keep his face stoic, not wanting to tip off the Harvestman as to the very personal things he was feeling. Chirp sounded soundly asleep in the back of the cart, to judge from his snoring, and Pill was grateful he wasn't awake to ask any sudden, probing questions. Perhaps the Harvestman could sense all of that, despite Pill's calm exterior, because he stayed silent and kept his clouded eyes to the road until Pill was ready to talk again. They rode in darkness, serenaded by the sounds of night for a long time before the trees started to break. Not so much that they were clear of the forest by any means, there were still endless stretches of black wood and grasping branches rising high into the sky, but the road was widening now at least, and there were larger openings in the canopy. Moonlight washed over the old road. Clouds of dirt rose behind the wagon while Chirp rolled and nestled deeper into the hay, his auburn hair now a minor tuft between the golden reeds. The Harvestman's weathered hands gripped tight to the reins, his horse continuing at a steady, implacable trot. The path was still simple dirt and mud, but was at least wide enough now that they didn't need to take it so slowly through the branches. Wide enough that they could breathe without wayward leaves and dirt and bugs finding their way into their mouths. The breeze picked up as well without the forest to hinder it, and Pill pulled his familiar and too large fleece even tighter, burying his face in its warmth. A lot of folk come by this way, the Harvestman idly mused some time into their ride. Good, bad, the sort who never really did nothing with themselves, and the sort who did everything and still wished for more. It sounds like your dad was one of the good ones. He was, said Pill. I miss him. The things we love have a way of finding their way back to us, said the Harvestman, still watching the road. Now, whether or not we have the wisdom to notice that is another matter entirely. Guilt burned in his heart as brightly as the light of the moon. Pill stared into the sky, hoping that the silver wash might blind him. He wanted to punish himself for somehow forgetting his own father, his mother, his family and home, himself. Everything was gone, and he didn't know why, but he was starting to suspect that it was his fault. Could he not find his way home because he didn't love them? That thought left him with a great deal of shame. Do you have any children? Pill asked, desperate to change the conversation. The Harvestman continued to smile, but Pill thought now it was tinged with a distant melancholy. Funny to say, as old as I am, but I never found the time. The rhythmic trotting of the horse punctuated the silence that followed. I can't say I'm unhappy with things how they are, even if I can't say I don't regret it some neither. But I got meaning in what I do, and enjoying the people that I meet through it. You're a good kid. Don't you go forgetting that, understand? Pill nodded, even if he didn't really believe it. The gaze of the Harvestman turned his way, however, and bored into him until he was forced to return it. I mean that now, he said. If winter is the time to take stock of what we have, then summer is the time to live and enjoy it. You're still in the summer of your youth, you understand? You might feel you got things to worry about, things to feel guilt over, things you might think you can never recover from, but I'm telling you, there's still a lot of days left before your winter arrives. You just have to claim them. The pale horse whinnied softly at something in the woods. With a gentle hush, the Harvestman quieted him. Never met someone with a problem they weren't better off facing head-on, the Harvestman continued. He raised his hands. But I shouldn't go telling you how to live your life now, should I? That's not my place. I'm just meaning to give you some friendly words if you'll take 'em. You're a good person, Pill. They rode in silence after that. It felt as though the toll of conversation had been paid, and the Harvestman seemed to realize just how much it had cost Pill to speak. Cold winds and rustling leaves and gentle horse whinnies filled the midnight air, alongside the steady rhythm of trotting hooves and the grooves of the wagon wheel. Chirp mumbled softly in his sleep. The Harvestman's brooding and comforting and deep and endless silence abounded through the vastness of the forest. Pill kept his head to the sky, watching the stars as they formed pictures in his mind. Smiling faces, strong arms, bread cooling on racks and being broken by many hands at dinner. He found as much meaning there as he did in the depths of his own thoughts, and so he let the theater of his mind play out among the stars for a while, seeking life in the silence between. "We'll be where you want to be soon enough," said the Harvestman, slowing the horse to a bare trot. "Folk'll be there to help you on your way if you'll let 'em. Mind, you'll still need to figure out which way that'll be. Most folk linger on a while before they figure it out for themselves, but your decision might be a little more rushed. The end of the season is coming, and the whole of everybody in the forest will be coming along with it. 2 more faces in the crowd won't be any bother." "What's everyone gathering for?" Pill asked sleepily. "End of the season festival, of course," said the Harvestman. "All the crops are in and all the work is done," he said, pointing to the back of his wagon. "Summer's gone and autumn's soon to go with it. People need a little picking up and celebration before they settle into winter." "Will you be staying around?" "No, I've got other places to be, I'm afraid." The Harvestman chuckled. "Besides, I never really was all that much for people. At least, not so many at once. I prefer the lone road myself, but I enjoy my company when I find it. Thank you for talking with me." The road was long and winding, and the night long and cold. Pill's eyes were growing heavy. As he fought to stay awake, he saw the stars slowly falling through the heavens down to earth, forming into distant lights that twinkled over the horizon. He blinked once, and tall shadows began to form. He blinked twice, and the wood began to fade, opening to wider grasslands still ringed with trees. The third time he closed his eyes, they stayed closed, and sleep finally claimed him. Although he wouldn't remember it later, he dreamt that night of his family.